You know when you come up with a really interesting loop and then you're like, yes, this sounds sick, I'm going to work on this one, I'm going to turn this one into a song, and then it just fizzles out and becomes another started project on your computer? Well, you're in luck, because in this video I'm going to show you how you can turn those loops into full songs following some very simple steps. I'm going to break down one of my songs and show you exactly how I did it. Now, if you like these videos, please hit the subscribe and like buttons below, and with that said, let's dive straight into it. Now, the first step is to come up with a song structure. Now, I find the best way to learn how to do this is to drag in your favorite songs and then label where they put the intro, the verse, how long each section is. Now, because I've done this a lot, I know what structures I like to use. So if you want to copy this structure, you can do so. Now, this structure is quite simple. It is an 8-beat intro, 16-beat verse, build and chorus, followed by another 16-beat verse, build and chorus, followed by a 16-beat bridge, and lastly by a 16-beat chorus and an 8-beat outro. So first up we have the intro. Now the intro consists of 3 separate layers, 2 piano layers and 1 serum preset. The serum preset has some processing on it to make it feel a little bit wider than the piano. Next, I added a few different layers such as white noise sweeps, wind chimes, water sounds, lo-fi vinyl, and a rattlesnake on the transition between the intro and the verse. And for the verse, all I did was I added a sub bass and some vocals.
Maybe I'll show you what's new.
Now let's listen to all of these layers together.
Maybe I'll show you what's new. Pull you aside, not come for you.
For the first half of the build, I removed the serum chords and replaced them with some vocals that occupied the same frequency range.
Come on, step in. Come on, step in.
Next, I layered a variety of different sweeps that went from wide to narrow the closer it got to the drop. Then I decided to add a kick drum that pitched up as it got closer. Two layered snare drums that pitched up as they got closer. Some hi-hats. Some more hi-hats. Some toms leading into the hi-hats. A reversed crash, a reversed reverb tail from the lead in the drop, and a reverb clap that plays just before the drop hits to help emphasize it when it hits. And this is what it sounds like with all of them together.
Come on, step in, do it, feel it. I know how, alive. See it, feel it, do it. Know how,
So for the drop, I used exactly the same chord progression as I used in the rest of the song. I also layered 8 different synths to make one big full sound. To add a little bit of movement, I decided to sidechain the bass synths and the high synths a little bit differently. I also automated the filter to have the cutoff open up a little bit in certain parts of the drop. Next, I made a lead by taking a vocal sample from the verse. I pitched it up 1 octave and added the heavy guitar tube effect to add some distortion. To emphasize the vocal chop, I also added another lead. For the drums, I come up with a more interesting kick pattern and I laid it with 3 different crash sounds for impact. Then I added a punchy snare and a snappy hi-hat that would cut through the mix. To help fill out the drum loop, I added a bunch of tom rolls and some gun sounds. This is what the drum loop sounds like by itself. And this is what the drop sounds like with everything together. Now, in my opinion, drums are probably one of the most important aspects of any dance song. If the drums are lacking, then the song is lacking, unfortunately. So if you want to learn how to really beef up your drum sounds and make them sound full and punchy, then watch this video up here and I'll show you exactly how you can do that. Alright, next step. To help introduce the second verse, all I did was leave 4 beats of empty space after the drop and filled it with some hi-hats and a reverb clap. The second verse is basically the same as the first verse, except that it uses the same drum pattern from the chorus, except that I swapped out some different kick samples and snare samples. I also swapped out the square sub bass in the intro and changed it to a sine wave so it has a little bit more depth and punch. The second build is pretty much the same as the first build, except for a few extra layers such as a shaker layer and some rising toms. Also, just before the drop, I switched out the reverb clap for a tom roll. Now let's listen to all of these layers together.
Maybe I'll show you what's new.
I decided to be lazy on the second drop and just made it exactly the same as the first drop. The bridge section consists of the same 2 bass synth layers that were in my main synth. I added some sub-bass risers to help bring in the sub-bass and also to help transfer from the chorus into the bridge. I added a layer of vocals and I also added a second layer of vocals pitched up 1 octave as a question and answer type effect.
I'll call you. Tell me that it's all alright.
Then I just added the same lead that I had playing in the chorus and it sounded great.
I'll call you. Tell me that it's all alright. Tell me that I seem just fine. Sipping on sunrise.
The last drop is exactly the same as all the other drops, except that I put similar vocals on it that I had in the bridge.
I feel tonight. When I think of you, I feel alive.
I also changed the lead a little bit and put some risers in there to help move into the outro. The outro is exactly the same as the intro, except that it has some vocals.
I'll call you. Tell me that it's all alright. Tell me that I seem just fine. Maybe I'll show you what's new. Pull you aside, not come for you. Swaying on that rocky shore. Tell me now, what are we waiting for? Come on, step in, do it, feel it. I know how will I see it, feel it, do it. Know how will I. Maybe I'll show you what's new. Pull you aside, not come for you. Swaying on that rocky shore. Tell me now, what are we waiting for? Come on, step in, do it, feel it. I know how will I see it, feel it, do it. Know how will I. I'll call you. Tell me that it's all alright. Tell me that I seem just fine. Sipping on the sunrise. And I'll show you. Tell you a little about myself. Tell you all about the chord. And every sin I love more. I feel tonight. When I think of you, I feel alive. Come and hold me, let me close my eyes. I die. I feel tonight. When I think of you, I feel alive. Come and hold me, let me close my eyes. I die. Now I'll call you. Tell me that it's all alright. Tell me that I seem just fine.